Welcome back to episode 43 of the Block Runner podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Iman.
What's up? We got special guests coming in later.
Yes.
Actually, like in 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, in a few minutes, we should be seeing Andreas Antonopoulos.
Our white whale, dude. What'd you call him? The white what?
Great white buffalo.
Okay. You keep changing it up on me, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. It's because we got a bunch of names for all these, like, what would we call them? These legendary creatures?
Sure, whatever. Mythics.
Yeah. Mythical creatures. There you go.
Let's call them mythics. Yeah, man. Especially Andreas, because, like, you know, everyone listening probably has, like, just the same experience. Well, maybe not everyone, but if you don't, you should probably go, like, watch some of his content.
Yeah.
Or listen or read some of his books, because, like, if you're looking for someone to really explain, like, in a way that you can understand it real well, and it's like he conveys the passion of the subject.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
he's your guy, you know.
Andreas is the one who really brought us into this.
Well, he got me peaked, man, because I saw him first on the Joe Rogan podcast in 2014.
Yeah.
You know, and to me at the time, he was just some guy on the Joe Rogan podcast, right? And then he started talking about this Bitcoin thing, which I already vaguely knew about at the time.
Yeah.
I heard it like peripherally, like some gamers were talking about it and stuff, but I never actually looked into it.
See, I
didn't know.
I think I saw it too, but I didn't really pay attention enough to be like curious. Not until somebody talked to me about Bitcoin, like in real life, like a physical, conversation.
Yeah.
And then I started doing research on Bitcoin. I found Andreas's YouTube videos, and then from there got into the white paper, and then just got hooked.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, if he didn't exist, more than likely, I would have been way late to the party. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it was like my own laziness that like didn't get me to commit to the level I would like to have committed it in 2014 when I first heard about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you were dealing with school and I mean, there's like
I call it laziness. It's just like
life.
Dude, there's definitely life. There's a layer of life complicating things, and there was also the ecosystem wasn't like super intuitive back then, dude.
No, for sure.
It was tough to navigate.
Yeah, it was like, Decentraland, how we had to envision what it was.
Yeah.
And
because there was nothing actually built.
There was nothing there. There was nothing to interact with.
Yeah. But I figured out as far as I went, because I wanted to purchase like an altcoin at the time, but as far as I got was downloading the Circle app, I think is what it was called, Circle Pay.
Yeah.
Just buying like $50 worth of Bitcoin, and then I don't really know what happened after that, but for some reason I just like forgot about it.
Yeah.
I just never went deeper. I don't know. But
and then all of a sudden you checked and it was like $300 or something.
Like it's 20. I did like a 6x without me doing anything. I was like, whoa, hold on, this might be what I've been missing out on.
Yeah.
And then I went down the rabbit hole, dude. Got obsessed, like straight up obsessed.
Right.
But he knows that, dude. I'm sure everyone he meets is like similar story.
Yeah.
And that's his purpose, right? His purpose is to spread the word. You know, it's not a religion or a cult or anything like that, but.
Yeah, we were just watching his videos and he was talking about how Ethereum has piqued his interest, and he's writing a book about, programming for Ethereum. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he really likes
programming for Ethereum.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how he's like really into kind of like all the new technologies being developed.
Yeah, he's a very tech guy, which is so. Yeah, when we talk to him, we're not going to try and go too deep into that aspect because it's been beaten to death.
Yeah, he talks about the technology a lot, which I really appreciate because that's what I like a lot too.
Yeah.
But we want to talk about like the grander effects of cryptocurrencies because this technology really affects the foundations of our economy worldwide.
Yeah, it's bigger than tech.
Yeah,
I mean, tech is the source and everything, but like. We were talking about this, like the internet, whenever it was devised and created, like it was a non-existent platform before it was created, right?
Yep.
So this cryptocurrency thing, like we have a financial system that us here in the first world, if you're in a developed country, we're we can't live without it.
We're pretty comfortable.
Yeah. And all of a sudden there's this new system in town that's competing against it.
Yeah.
And I want to find out his thoughts on that and exactly how far that's going to go is, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, the one of the common like quotes that we use from Andreas is the fact that it's still the early 90s of the internet.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to take advantage of it.
Well, See, that's the thing, and he advocates like it's so early, like just experiment. We're in like an experimental phase, right?
Yeah.
So just create something, and I don't know. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if you could, then you're in a good place. Like if you can predict exactly what's going to happen, then
Yeah, then you're like super ahead. But
yeah,
if you could predict, you'd
Not that
already
easy,
be like
right?
100 millionaire just by investing in Bitcoin in 2011.
Well, some people did have that foresight. I guess.
They did.
You know, they first heard about it and they're like, you know what, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
This is going to happen.
Yeah.
I guess in order to come to that conclusion, you had to understand at the time like the serious problems with our traditional finance system.
Yeah, the economics, the
Yeah, the
technology,
economics.
the fact that it solves like a fundamental computer science problem.
Yeah, all that stuff.
All that stuff you had to like understand back in 2011. You had to already know it.
And I guess the timing of it was like perfect because it was right after the financial collapse, right? So
Yeah.
all this like the landscape was everyone was trying to figure out like what went wrong. So people were starting to figure out like the root
Exactly.
issues, the root concerns with our traditional system.
Yeah, man.
So
It was,
Yeah,
it was
back-
part of the
I mean,
part of
I-
the zeitgeist at the time.
exactly. But I was like 15 or something when that went down.
Yeah.
So I wasn't
Like
really
you wouldn't, yeah.
I wasn't really thinking too much about it, right?
It's like, bro, why do I care about fiat?
Yeah, see,
And-
I'm still trying to wrap my head around all this shit, dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, most people, they're not even thinking about it. I mean, because they got other concerns, right? They got families, they got, all kinds of concerns that, have their attention at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But man, hopefully we get into some juicy stuff with Andreas.
Yeah, we want to talk about Decentraland too, hopefully.
Yeah.
All you Decentraland listeners, man, just big things happening in the future for Decentraland. Dude, we're like, what, a day or two out from a new year?
That's true. This is December 30th.
Yeah. So last podcast of the year.
Yep.
I mean, y'all won't see this probably for like a few days or most likely, but
Yeah.
this is a good way to wrap up the year for sure
Yeah.
as we wait.
And this video will be at the very beginning of next year, so it's a good way to start.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
we got a couple more minutes until he comes in. And we only have a few minutes with Andreas. This guy's really busy, so we want to make sure we use the time wisely.
And a quick little Andrew Yang update. Apparently, he's got like a day or something, right? You've been
right.
showing me nonstop like their campaign fundraising,
yeah, man.
dude.
Yang 2020.
He's almost there to qualify for what? The next debate? Is that
No. So he's got 3 more polls to qualify for the next debate.
Uh-huh.
And the problem is that they're not polling anybody right now.
What's that deadline though for the 3 million?
January. So the 3 million is December 31st,
Yeah.
12 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, that's like in a couple of days. Oh,
2
yeah,
days.
very soon.
So he's got less than 1 million left, like 700,000 left. And but that's just for him to, get a bunch of donations, right? He's competing in number of donations, volume of donations.
But if he doesn't make that threshold, what happens?
If he doesn't get the polls, if he doesn't get 5% in 4 polls or 7% in early polls, 7%,
yeah,
he's not going to make the debate. So the issue is he can make the numbers, but nobody's being polled right now. That's the issue. And the deadline for that is January 10th to qualify.
Yeah.
Which is like 12 days from now.
Yeah.
So it's going to come down the line. I think he is going to make it. That's my prediction.
He did the best.
Well, man,
I
it's
was
like
the last debate that we just had.
For sure.
He shined the best. That's the first time I've ever seen him got like mainstream praise from
Absolutely.
you know what I mean. Before
Absolutely.
he was like the ghost of the table. Nobody talked about him for a reason. A lot of the other networks would shut him down.
Yeah.
But this
No,
last
absolutely.
one was good.
He did really good. Like he had some like off the cuff questions. It seemed like but he answered them as good as anyone could.
Yeah, let's hope for the best, man. So this is gonna be 2020 is a critical year. A lot of reasons, man.
So
big
many
ass election.
reasons. Man, like the economy's at the brink of like.
Is there even is there an Olympics this year too? There might be. You don't give a fuck.
I personally don't care about that.
It's like fuck all that noise. Dude,
Yeah,
Olympics
man.
comes around every 4 years, man. That doesn't excite you a little bit?
Yeah, the financial collapse is like
Way more on your mind.
Yeah.
It's way pressing. For good reason. Dude, I got you spooked now, didn't I?
Yeah, man, for real.
Yeah?
For real. I'm concerned. just because my family, all the boomers that I know, got 401ks, and there's a threat. I mean, it's almost obvious.
Yeah,
it's almost obvious
when you actually look at it. Yeah, and you have to understand.
And then there's a correlation between the Great Depression and what's happening right now. Like it's as if we're repeating history. Like exactly, except extremely worse because we're talking about the collapse of currencies. Yeah, not just like the economy, right? I mean, like
it's a lot worse because a lot of the same. What would you call it? Like just mishandling of our economy by the centralized entities, but over stimulating a downed economy. What's that term called? Quantitative easing.
Oh, yeah, quantitative easing.
Yeah, all that stuff. It's at peak, all time highs. Basically, is what I'm saying. So there's a lot of. Is he calling in?
No, not yet.
Okay, but you're right to be worried, man. This is a big thing.
Yeah, man, it's like all the boomers, they've had the mentality of saving money, putting money in the 401k for their retirement, and some of them have successfully done so. But it's at the brink of like falling apart right at the buzzard.
Yeah.
That's what I'm concerned about. And then I get the feeling like this is like conspiracy theory, like tinfoil hat like stuff, and
because we're speculating beforehand.
Yeah. And then we saw a video about Ray Dalio. He's saying the exact same thing.
Yeah, billionaire investor, right?
Yeah.
What would be his motive for like making up something like that? I don't think he has one.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Hey, Andreas, can you hear us? Oh. Yeah, we cannot hear you. 1 second. Yeah, we don't hear anything.
That's why. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yes, sir.
All right. I just have to switch audio sources. How's it going?
Excellent. Thank you for having us, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I know you probably know we have some limited time. I'm literally this is my third interview in a row, and I've got 2 more to go, and they're in 30-minute slots, and we didn't leave time in between. So let's do this.
All right. Thank you, man. Thank you.
I like the energy.
I've already had too much coffee. Let's go.
All right, so obviously we got into cryptocurrency because of you. We a lot of this stuff that we've known now is really because of understanding like how everything works through your videos and everything. So we really appreciate you joining us. But getting into the meat of things, we wanted to get your perspective on like the grand socioeconomic effects of cryptocurrency. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. Thank you. That's a topic I'm close and dear to my heart.
Absolutely. So we've been using your quote on how blockchain is in the early 90s of the internet. And one of the things that we keep debating about is whether or not crypto requires this grand event for mass adoption to occur, like potentially a collapse in currency itself. Mm-hmm. I wanted to get your opinions on that.
Absolutely not. I don't think it requires a grand event, and I certainly hope it doesn't require a grand event because, as I've said in the past, you do not want to. You do not look forward to the boat sinking so you can find out if the lifeboat works. Bitcoin's a lifeboat in that circumstance, and we don't want the Titanic going down so we can find out if there's enough space. And the truth is, there isn't. Crypto isn't ready to take over currency use for the world. And in any case, that's not the point. In my opinion, Bitcoin isn't there to be the dominant system that everybody only uses and the only choice. If we end up in that situation, there will be even more incentive to co-opt and corrupt Bitcoin. And we will create other power imbalances and monopoly structures. The whole point of this space, to me, has always been choice. So it's about having lots of different choices. And people are already making the choice in the places where they need to make the choice today. So people who need crypto are using crypto. And it may be a small number of people now, but certainly, fragile, antiquated banking and transactional systems that are expensive and slow and full of inequity and injustice and barriers to commerce and competition are now having to compete with a system that is fast and secure and low cost, and doesn't have intermediaries and barriers. How does that play out? They're going to have to try real hard to stomp on this one. And they already are, because in an open competition, the fragile, antiquated systems lose. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've always talked about that, and we always have this debate on whether or not governments are going to adopt a permissionless currency, when we know for a fact right now that a bunch of governments, including the United States, they're tinkering around with creating their own cryptocurrency, a permissioned version of a cryptocurrency.
Right.
But how will governments, exist and operate or coexist with a permissionless coin when you and I, when we do a transaction, we can send each other Bitcoin instead of a USD coin?
Yeah. Well, we have the choice to do both, and both will coexist for a very, very, very long time. And I don't think that's a problem. I think most governments won't go to a permissionless currency because control over currency is such a big part of how nation states exert control both over their populations and also how they play geopolitical games. That's one of the fundamental problems of national currencies, is that their primary purpose isn't commerce, and it's certainly not the people and serving them with a tool that they can use for commerce. Their primary purpose is control, and both control domestically as well as geopolitical control. So from that perspective, I don't think most countries will do that. However, some countries will, and the reason they will is because they will not have an adequately secure, adequately stable, and adequately valuable alternative, or it will be too expensive for them to do that. So there are a whole bunch of countries around the world today that don't have a national currency. I don't know if you knew that. There are countries that don't have their own national currency, either through a de facto collapse, where simply their currency is too expensive to print, and they're gradually sliding into a situation where everybody uses currencies from adjacent countries or far removed countries. A good example of that is Somalia. For example, from what I understand, you can trade just as easily with US dollars there as you can with Somali money. They haven't done central bank printing of Somali money in a long time because there is no central government to do that. From what I understand, I may be wrong about some of the details.
Sure.
We've seen similar things in some former Yugoslav republics where they ended up choosing to just use euro, because why bootstrap a whole currency system that costs hundreds of millions of dollars to print all of these colored pieces of paper? Just use the next door people's one. Works well enough, doesn't have too much inflation. So if your ability to actually control your population and play these games and control inflation through your own currency has already gone away, at that point, why not? Right? So at some point, I think we're going to see either a government adopting a permissionless currency, or the vast majority of the people within that country adopting a permissionless cryptocurrency, because there is no better alternative, and therefore it just becomes the de facto currency of that country. One way or another. It may take decades, but I think that's one of the litmus tests, like one of the milestones. When that happens, something big has changed.
So that brings me to the next question, where if we have several countries starting to adopt permissionless currency, let's say Bitcoin, for example, do you think that will have effect on the global reserve currency that is the US dollar, when you have potentially several other countries using a permissionless coin?
Well, the global reserve currency, the US dollar, has a much, much, much bigger problem. And that is, like most empires before it, the US has overreached and overstretched. And as a result, it's lost its center of balance. So overextended empires tend to have this prolonged downfall. But one of the first things that happens is they lose the ability to bully other countries through geopolitics by being the reserve currency. I think the dollar started its exit from being the world reserve currency about 5 to 10 years ago.
Yep.
And it's accelerating. And it's accelerating not because of Bitcoin. It's accelerating because of China. It's accelerating because of Russia. It's accelerating because of all of the other countries that don't like a system where the U.S. government gets to impose sanctions and controls on their banking from afar. It's a tool of power. And so other countries are now challenging that power. And I think already, from the perspective of China and Russia, de-dollarization, as it's called, has started. Now the question is, when is that tipping point where it really becomes obvious to a lot of people that the US dollar no longer has the power that it used to have as that unique and only reserve currency? And that moment is going to be critical, because a lot of the reserve currency status, if you like, is about preserving the illusion, right? It's that shared belief. If that belief cracks, it's a very quick transition. And one of the impacts of that is that the US dollar enjoys unusually and unreasonably low interest rates because of its status as the world reserve currency, because other countries seem to be forced or feel forced to hold it in order to buy oil. And that petrodollar relationship and reserve currency relationship gives us these unreasonably low interest rates. Basically, we get a premium on our treasury bills that the rest of the world pays because of the status. The moment there's cracks in that facade, those interest rates are going to bounce up hard. Because it will no longer be able to maintain that illusion. So that's not going to be a pleasant experience for Americans.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think that kind of is the grand event we were alluded to in that first question.
Yeah.
Kind of like we're trying
I
to...
sure as hell hope not, because, one of the problems is that the easiest way to respond to a crisis like that is to start a massive war. The easiest way to deal with an economic crisis of that style is to create a provocation and create a national emergency, a fake national emergency, in order to pump trillions of dollars into the military-industrial complex, which is something that, all empires do and all empires have done. So I'm hoping we get the other way, which is the long, slow slide into a multipolar world, with hopefully people becoming more independent, more flexible, and diversifying effectively, geographically, ethnically, and also professionally, so that they don't have to go down with a ship.
Absolutely. It's funny.
I don't like the doomsday approach to Bitcoin. I don't like Bitcoin as, and then the world crashes and then we get rich. That's a really childish and also pretty cruel attitude towards personal enrichment.
Totally agree. The last thing that we want is some catastrophic event to kind of like shift the wealth to another generation.
But isn't it in another way like almost like setting like a reset button? There's the current establishment is so set in stone based on generations of wealth that there's obviously.
But it's not. I think that's the other thing that is a common misconception. But if you look through history, the idea is that nothing happens for decades and then decades happen in weeks. History does not work in a linear fashion. Human behavior works with tipping points. So you can see something that seems like it's eternal, and then over a matter of a year or even a matter of weeks, topples. I mean, I remember 1989. I remember watching on TV as the Berlin Wall went down. And if you had asked me 2 months earlier if the Soviet Union would ever go away, I would have laughed. Even at that age, 17 years old, 18 years old, I had enough political acuity to see the Soviet Union at the time as something that was, almost eternal, like a superpower that seemed to be so strong from the outside. And then suddenly it was gone. And part of the reason is because that, just as financial systems, is very much dependent on that shared illusion of stability. And the moment that cracks, things move very, very fast. So, whether you look at that or you look at Lehman Brothers on a smaller scale, who could have possibly imagined that, or whatever the next crisis is. So I wouldn't say that you need a giant global reset in order to shake things up. Markets get shaken up all the time. Financial markets are no different. Technology is one of the best mechanisms to disrupt and gradually or rapidly change the status quo. So I think and I hope we've got a good chance of doing this the easy way rather than doing it the hard way.
Right. Yeah, kind of like we were saying, the 90s of the internet, as far as blockchain. But isn't cryptocurrency sort of like not necessarily an attack, but an extreme update to the financial system and the foundation of everything that we built on? So for the last 10 years, we've been experiencing extreme growth in the stock market, and quantitative easing has helped the economy, so to speak. Don't you feel?
It depends how you define the economy. Right. If you define the economy as the market, quantitative easing has helped the market.
Right, exactly.
But not the economy. I walk out here and ask 10 people what they think the economy is doing. They're not going to agree that we have the greatest economy ever.
So wouldn't you agree that we're at a tipping point for the market itself? That
I think our economy is the U.S. economy is in a very fragile state, but so is the world economy, primarily because nothing changed in 2008. So nothing was fixed. It was all papered over, inflated up, and after about a year of desperate measures, the desperate measures became permanent. The deck chairs got rearranged, and the dance started again. I mixed all of the metaphors there.
So now, in May 2020, we have the Bitcoin halvening. So at that point, the inflation rate of Bitcoin is now less than the inflation of the U.S. dollar. Does that have any impact on the situation for the dollar?
For the dollar, no. The dollar has other things, much bigger things to worry about, including the dollar itself, than Bitcoin. But does it have an impact on Bitcoin? I think there's a real danger in what I'd like to call kind of monetary manifest destiny. The idea that a monetary model, and we've seen this especially in the last 2 years with the emergence of this kind of maximalist approach to the monetary model, and the stock to flow model, and all of these predictions about monetary economics around Bitcoin, that say very simply that from a monetary perspective, Bitcoin's success is manifest destiny. It's inevitable. It's unstoppable. And more importantly, nothing else needs to happen. Nothing else matters. All that matters is the soundness of the money. All that matters is the inflation rate. I think that's a very dangerous attitude. It's dangerous because it's short-sighted from two perspectives. First of all, it assumes that anything other than Bitcoin that doesn't have the same monetary policy is doomed to fail, which gives you the maximalist perspective. I mean, that's not dangerous. That's, to me, just a bit short-sighted. But the counter to that is that we don't need to worry about utility. We don't need to worry about education. We don't need to worry about user interfaces. We don't need to worry about better wallets. We don't need to worry about better stability, better software. We don't need to worry about building infrastructure. None of that matters because the stock to flow model is going to make Bitcoin victorious no matter what. The hardest money wins, even if it's the hardest to use, as well as the hardest from a monetary perspective.
Right.
That's not true.
Right.
And so from that perspective, sure, the model may be correct. The monetary characteristics may prevail, but that's a long-term game. And it's equally important what we do in the short term and what we do on an interpersonal level and what we do on a social level. It's equally important that we behave with dignity and respect towards the people who are new to this space and not with kind of sneering condensation. It's equally important that we build better software, better infrastructure, better interfaces, and that we continue to work hard to make this a better, more useful system that people can use securely. And if the monetary aspects also help a lot, great. But let's not just, say, oh, it's inevitable.
Sure.
The monetary thing is the only thing that matters. I think that's very dangerous. And it leads to the kind of complacency and arrogance and hubris that has doomed many previous movements and technologies and communities.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, in other words, what you're saying is in a vacuum, Bitcoin may not necessarily follow this linear regression curve or stock to flow model unless we continue focusing on education, better user interfaces, better overall kind of like, just education on what Bitcoin is and how it actually solves like real world problems.
Yeah, because I guess
it's still very possible to fail on multiple dimensions in this experiment if we sit back and rest on our laurels and pretend that this is inevitable.
Right.
And I think that's dangerous. I think it's important we continue to remind people why this is important, and Lambos is not the correct answer. If we continue to educate, we continue to behave in a neutral way and explain to people why this technology offers a great deal of important characteristics which have to do with freedom and empowerment and independence and freedom of expression and all of these great characteristics which go beyond the soundness of the currency, and continue to strive to make it a better experience and to bring more people in, rather than put tests in the way and say, oh, you're not pure enough to participate in our great monetary experiment because your politics are not aligned with ours, or because your carnivory isn't carnivorous enough.
Right. So one of the things I really liked about your talk a few weeks ago was you were explaining kind of like the final evolution of blockchain in this one network multi-chain idea. Can you describe that a little bit more?
Well, the idea here was that I think we're going to gradually move into the next phase here, where technologies often move through these phases where at first you have fragmentation, where people go out and explore all of the possible alternative paths. Think of it as a tree, and you're searching in a breadth first. You're searching all of the branches of the tree to explore all of the possible avenues, and we've seen that happen in crypto for sure. And that's led to this explosion, the Cambrian explosion, if you like. Nature does this in evolutionary terms. Fill every niche. Not everything survives. And gradually you start seeing some common elements become more successful than others. You have some consolidation, you have some setbacks, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you even have a couple of extinction level events. And we've had some markets that have been clearing for the soul and for the ecosystem and have cleared out some of the junk. That's also a healthy part of how open markets work. But at some point, I think we transition to the next phase, and the next phase is about interoperability. It's where we start thinking about standardizing some of the capabilities, some of the protocols, the features, the interfaces, and building networks to bridge all of the various niches together to better take advantage of the most successful characteristics that have emerged from all of that period of experimenting and fragmentation. So what does that mean? I think that happens a lot with second layer networks and even perhaps third layer networks, where we start seeing the use of technologies like atomic swaps and other trustless mechanisms for exchanging one currency for another, and perhaps even exchanging state. So one smart contract state influencing another smart contract state in another blockchain, in order to weave together the blockchains from a user experience perspective,
Mm-hmm.
so that people can comfortably move between them for different niche applications. And that doesn't mean that there aren't dominant players. There are absolutely dominant players, especially in very specific categories. Money, for example, I think has already been dominated by Bitcoin and will continue to be dominated by Bitcoin unless something massively changes. But there are other domains too. And I think we're going to see solutions emerge in other domains where Bitcoin doesn't want to go or can't go because of the design characteristics it has. And so the one network, many chains, is basically this. I don't want many chains. I simply recognize the fact that that's where we are. Mm-hmm. And that's a very important distinction. This isn't a matter of saying that all of them have economic value or that this is a desirable outcome. Hell, I'd love a world in which we had the simplicity of a single unit and a single protocol that did everything. I think it's unlikely to emerge. And in fact, I think we're actually going to experience more fragmentation in the future. But I would like to see consolidation, interoperability, standardization at the user experience level. And I think we can achieve that with networks that span multiple blockchains. And eventually those networks themselves get standardized, consolidated, and you might have the emergence of one interoperability protocol that works across all of the chains. And it starts with simply a series of bridges, gateways, and routers, just like the internet did. Yeah. You know, the internet was composed from a hodgepodge of competing physical layer networks that all disagreed about the best properties to have in terms of latency and speed and other characteristics. And then, out of necessity, bridges emerged, basically computers that took one side and connected it on the other side to a different network. We're already seeing that with atomic swaps, decentralized exchanges, and things like that. And then eventually a common protocol that was able to hide all of the details. Mm-hmm. But underneath, those battles are still being waged. You know, we're still waging battles between 5G internet and Wi-Fi internet and satellite internet and landline and cable modems. Those base physical networks haven't changed. I think blockchains are more akin to those physical networks. They have to make hard design trade-offs. And those hard design trade-offs are unique to the circumstances that they exist in. And I think we will see a protocol emerge that hides all of those differences, that creates an abstraction layer.
Okay. As for the final question, we don't really hear you talk about NFTs all that often. So we're invested in this cryptocurrency called Decentraland, or this platform called Decentraland. What are your general thoughts on NFTs and the fact that, in our opinion, I think blockchain and gaming has like this really big role to play?
Well, if you haven't heard me talk about it, that's a problem, because I am very, very excited about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, to be more specific. I wrote a whole chapter about NFTs and mastering Ethereum. In fact, the token chapter is something I spent a lot of time working on. And at the time, ERC 721 was the gold standard. There's some developments there, but it's still kind of one of the leading mechanisms. I hope I'm remembering the number correctly. But in any case, deeds or non-fungible tokens or uniquely identifiable tokens that allow you to address an individual item, whether that's a physical item that you've tokenized and connected to, such as a house or a boat or a car in the physical world, or it's a virtual item, which is even more interesting, because then you can encompass all of the state and all of the ownership characteristics on the blockchain, so it becomes intrinsic to the blockchain. Whether that's the sword of Gondor or the shield of Glor, or some other silly name, some in-game item. I think there's an enormous opportunity for game economies to become integrated, traversable, liquid, and to have secondary and tertiary markets emerge spontaneously. And that becomes very, very powerful when you have non-fungible tokens. But if you take it further, it's not just games. I think in business as well, the ability to take various forms of intellectual property and non-tangible things For example, status, reputation, trust metrics, and use non-fungible tokens to connect those to markets. I don't know. It's a very interesting topic. I find it fascinating. I think gaming might be one of the breakthrough applications that makes Bitcoin and Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies not necessarily necessary, but interesting to first world developed economies. Because right now, look, Argentina needs crypto, Venezuela needs crypto, Greece needs crypto, but does Canada need crypto? Not really. Does the United States need crypto, or Japan? Not really. But maybe America, Canada, and Japan want crypto because it is the coolest way to do something you couldn't do before, which is gaming. Or some other application. Yeah, very, very big fan of NFTs.
Awesome. Well, Andreas, thank you very much for joining us. I know you have other interviews to go to. We really appreciate you joining us. Hopefully we can have you back pretty soon.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I'm sorry I only had 30 minutes this time, but I'd love to come back and do another one soon.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're right. That went by like freaking...
Yeah, that was the fastest 30 minutes I've ever experienced. That was...
You called it. You're like... You see, the funny thing is like... What we spend like days thinking about, like, because we do this. I didn't hardly even got a word out. That's how fast it went by.
Yeah.
But we spent so much time thinking about, like, man, this is an important man. Like, he's got so much in his head, right?
Yeah. And Andreas, I mean, he likes to monologue a lot. So as soon as you give him one question, he could at least.
I think that's where he shines.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
If you just give him an open platform,
he'll
just
talk away.
That's what I was like saying. Like, dude, how come like. Well, he's Canadian, I guess, and he has done that. I was like, well, how come the United States hasn't, like, put him on a stage and, like, asked him all these... Because we've witnessed Congress how...
As a matter of fact, you know, I think we watched this independently, like, just randomly.
What?
Before we even started this whole crypto thing, or this podcast thing. But you watched the Canadian Congress address with Andreas Antonopoulos. It was like 2 to 3 hours long.
It was pretty long, yeah.
And we both watched it, like, independently without even talking about it. And it was extremely interesting. I mean, there was a government, like, intrinsically interested in how blockchain works and, like, all the little intricacies.
I didn't feel like the attacks that, like, the United States government, like, especially when they bring in Zuckerberg and all those, like, the Libra Commission and stuff.
For sure.
There's a lot of attacking going on, right? And not so much they're not trying to understand, they just want to impose.
Yeah.
You know, but the Canadian government...
they're wide open to it.
That's their reputation, right? They're just like nice people up there.
I think maybe ultimately, like any other government that's not the United States, they're not number one, right? The U.S. is number one, so they feel like everybody's out to get them. So they're more defensive than they are like open to new technologies. And not only that, we got a bunch of old geezers in our Congress.
Yeah,
and probably it's probably the same, but with the Canadian Congress, but nonetheless, like we have like. A huge resistance to new stuff in our government.
Yeah.
And it's probably the reason why we're seeing a whole lot of, like, whenever Zuckerberg comes in, they don't even know how Zuckerberg makes money.
Correct.
And you know, I could tell Zuckerberg, he was trying really hard not to make fun of him.
Yeah.
But, you know, how do you compete with this? How do you transition to something new when the government doesn't really understand, like, any of the new stuff that's happening?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about like our introduction question, because that was like kind of like the main talking point that we really wanted to get into.
So we were talking about this for a while, and we watched a bunch of videos with Ray Dalio, and we saw like how our current situation with the economy mirrors to what's going on what happened in 1930s with the Great Depression.
And I guess the question we asked them is like, does shit have to hit the way I would word it?
Yeah.
You know, does shit have to hit the fan in order for people to wake up? Essentially, wake up like to all. I mean, he's got you know, commercial obligations, right? He can't just come out and like shill this doom and gloom scenario, because it doesn't. I feel like it doesn't reflect good,
and it's probably not a good look.
Yeah.
For
He
sure.
said it himself. Like that's. But I think he like at the root, like of course he understands. He's like an expert at like what's going on in an economic scale.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to be like the Paul Revere, like the
Well, he is
the
the Paul
redcoats are
Revere,
coming.
but he doesn't want it. He doesn't want it to seem like the crypto community is like rooting for this.
Oh, yeah.
to happen.
Yeah, he doesn't want crypto to become this fear. Go to crypto because of fear.
Exactly, like fear-mongering campaign. Fear-mongering campaign.
And that's not what crypto is about, because it's inherently better in a lot of ways, and it shouldn't be about fear at all.
Yeah.
And so I understand like his position there, but I could tell that he knows that the dollar, everything that the dollar like used to represent, is at the brink of like falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it happens in 2020 or 2025, it is literally a matter of time.
Yeah.
Because the thing that we're experiencing right now, if you look at the S&P 500, if you watch our last video, we looked at the S&P 500 chart and the NASDAQ, and it's at all-time highs.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable, right? And all the quantitative easing that's happening right now, like there's a tipping point where more quantitative easing is not going to help.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's sort of what we felt like we were going to have like a 30-minute conversation on, which like he's got a vested interest not to like, well, I don't want to say he's got a vested interest. He doesn't want to fearmonger.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to put it, because it is some scary shit when you sit down and start to think about it and talk about it. I don't think he wants that to be his reputation. He's the tech guy.
Yeah, he's the
guy who's evangelizing like what's going on behind the scenes, like why this is, like you called it, like an upgrade to the current financial system.
Yeah.
It's a legit upgrade.
So I definitely, so I thought his book about Ethereum and programming in Ethereum, I thought that book was like a little bit more technical than what he alluded to, because he talks about NFT in there. And I'm sure it's probably a little bit more technical than like a general audience.
Yeah.
But a lot of his video, we've seen a bunch of his videos, and there's very little discussion on NFTs.
No, if you put this video out there, you title it, and if Andreas Antonopoulos on NFTs, we'll probably be the first.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, he wrote about it because NFTs is
it's a big thing, right? That's like one of the big things about.
And he nailed it when he said, like, okay, so he doesn't agree with us, or at least he can't agree with us that there needs to be some type of catastrophic financial event in order for people to wake up and adopt this new system, right?
Yeah.
So the other route is then, okay, things are going to progress just like the internet did. Like, this is a new layer of technology that over time people are going to slowly wake up to, just like they did the internet. Why did that happen? Because people figured out how to exploit the internet, and like slowly, the protocol, it had like a decade of like figuring out how to get everything, the infrastructure laid out, right?
For sure.
So if you correlate that to the crypto, so then we're anticipating like a slow, gradual adoption of just organic users.
Yeah.
Right? And right now, who's using it right now? Like you said, people who really need it. Like,
that's right.
Third world.
See, I like that take, because many countries need cryptocurrencies as like a vital sustainability contribution.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of countries that don't need cryptocurrencies. But
like countries like us, we literally only use it to speculate.
Yeah,
basically.
That's right.
Or to store, Bitcoin. It's a good
store of value.
It's a good uncorrelated asset to traditional markets. It's good to sit on.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not that crazy. You store it in a hardware or cold wallet.
And
there's like no risk.
Yeah.
But he nailed it when he said he thinks video game industry is probably
like
going to be like a breakthrough moment. Yeah. If there's an audience who's going to like understand this technology like more intuitively, it's definitely like the gaming industry, without question.
Yeah.
The gamer player base. Once people figure out like, holy shit, these Hearthstone cards that I'm trading, actually have value to them and stuff.
Right.
Then they'll start looking into why.
What did you think of my segue into that question?
Pretty good, dude.
Man, we were like racking our brains on figuring out how we could segue into like Decentraland.
Yeah, we generally didn't think he like gave a fuck.
Yeah,
which is exactly a huge mistake. That's what I was saying. Is like, there's no way he doesn't know about this stuff.
Yeah,
he knows about everything.
Yeah.
But
that's one of the innovations in Ethereum is the fact that you have digital assets, right? And he
kind of touched on security tokens. Like, it's not just virtual assets; they're real physical assets that you can digitize, these security token offerings and stuff. Real estate, actual physical real estate. He went as far as to say, what did he say? Like
reputation and like
Reputation.
non-tangible assets. Like
That's
reputation.
fascinating.
Yeah.
What if like celebrities can like NFT their own fame?
Well, remember there was
You know what I
there was
mean?
a blockchain that was focused on like NFTing a bunch of celebrities and like
Yeah, I remember hearing. Yeah, I remember that.
and then it failed. Like
Oh.
you just link your Twitter account because it has a blue check mark,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you owned your NFT and you could decide to sell it or do whatever with it.
It's almost like your.
It's like an avatar. It's like a caricature.
Yeah. There's so many ideas out
That,
there.
and that was in 2017. That failed for like a number of reasons that I can't remember, but it had something to do with like the government or something.
Yeah, man. Andreas is like the hypest person I've ever talked to, like seen, interacted with.
Yeah.
Like, dude, his brain operates on like a ridiculous, like, amp.
Yeah,
or something, like,
he's got a high motor.
there you go.
Yeah.
That's a simple way to put it.
No,
No, intense,
I mean-
man. I couldn't like get a word in, man. He was like, I didn't want to interrupt the flow of of goodness that was coming out of him.
No, absolutely.
Like
No.
interrupt him with something stupid. Like it's like, so what do you think about chicken or something like that? You know what I mean? Like he was spitting some. Dude, he always does it, man. He spits gold.
Yeah.
That's why he's got the reputation he has.
Well, as true to form, I didn't maximize the video. Did you notice that?
No, what does that mean? What
Like-
happened?
Well, because the whole screen is being recorded right now,
Oh,
but what I can do is I can edit and like zoom into that part.
what do you mean true to form? Like,
Well, because like every time we have an interview, there's always
Something goes
something
wrong?
goes wrong,
yeah,
man.
you're right, dude. We're freaking rookies over here.
God damn it! But it's okay. It wasn't as
We're
bad.
getting
Like,
better.
yeah. No, it was a good conversation. We got literally all the questions that we designed for.
Yeah.
We got them all in, dude.
It means we're getting better at making using our time wisely, I guess.
Yeah.
Me,
Yeah.
like I really wanted him to go deep into the doom and gloom scenario, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I get
get
it.
why he can't.
Yeah.
That's left up to us to like speculate on and
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you look up any random Andreas Antonopoulos video, he's always talking about the technology, how good it is, and like how it affects like countries that need some of this stuff. But we wanted to talk about like the existential, threat that
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies could cause. Once people realize, their fiat currency counterpart is almost like it's about to topple over. It's almost
Just
like a Ponzi scheme. Everybody calls fiat currency a Ponzi scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyone who knows how it works.
Yeah, and again, I get it. Like he can't go out there looking like he's starting a crusade. Like, cause he alluded to, there's been tons of movements like that in the past, and they
Exactly.
all died out.
Yeah. Exactly.
All these like Occupy Wall Street, and
Yeah.
like they don't have.
They're
like,
all fear mongering.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like the system's fucked. The 1%'s like a bunch of evil assholes,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
he doesn't want crypto to turn into that. There's definitely like an underlying sentiment for that,
Yeah.
with people who are frustrated, with the traditional system.
He said it himself.
What?
He says like, well, if you ask anybody about the economy, they'll tell you that the economy's not working for their market.
Yeah. See, I really wanted to interject. Like, okay,
Dude,
like
who says that?
Yeah, Andrew Yang.
Exactly.
Yeah, like we needed to expand on our vision or our
Damn,
understanding of what an economy actually is.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Dude, he hit it right on the nail because we're seeing it too. Like all the stock markets are up. Everything's like the economy's like from a graphical standpoint.
Yeah, we look at the
Everything's
graphs,
great.
everything's booming. Exactly, everything's booming.
But then you go and you talk to anybody, or you just look at the math.
Mhm.
In Andrew Yang's like sort of lingo, you look at the math. 1% own 80% of all stocks,
Mm-hmm.
and then like I think it was like 20% own like the next 20%,
Mm-hmm.
and then the bottom 50% own 0% of stock.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if like the stock market is booming, it doesn't really affect most people.
No,
So
I mean this shows like the wealth disparity just continues and
Is-
continues to grow. That's why I've got this doom and gloom scenario in my head, dude. I can't knock it.
yeah.
I just can't shake it off of me. Like and just be like what did Elon Musk say? Like like I'd rather be an optimist and be wrong,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something like that.
Or a pessimist being right.
yeah,
I'd rather be an optimist and be wrong than be a pessimist and be right.
Yeah, I think that's probably like the healthier attitude to have. That way you don't have as much anxiety and stress.
See,
in
but
your
the thing
life,
is, like, I don't know if this is so much pessimism than
And
it is like reality.
well, the optimistic outlook would be like, oh, we'll figure it out. You know, we'll recover. You know, we always have in the past. And stuff.
I mean, that's
which
true.
we will.
We will.
But to my thinking
But
is,
there might be bloodshed.
yeah, that's he even said that himself.
Yeah,
Yeah, because if we're claiming this whole financial system goes down, there's going to be a trickle down effect. And in those types of environments, usually like uprisings happen. You know, just people are going to be desperate, man. It's going to be bad times in a whole global downturn.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
it has to just by the nature of the functionality of what we're doing to the economy, like quantitative easing.
Yeah,
the fact that we have rampant inflation in other countries, the fact that the dollar is the world reserve currency, and you know, Andreas even said it. De-dollarization is starting to happen around the globe, and so the weakening of the dollar is going to lead to this collapse.
Yeah, and there's good reason for that because the United States, their leverage is their U.S. dollar, the power of it. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if I was the leader of Russia or China, of course I would do anything I could think of to try and limit that power. So no longer when we go to these trade meetings, like I have to just like sit back and do whatever the United States says, right? Because they have all the leverage.
Right.
That's how the geopolitical landscape is today, and that's what I was saying. Like, is this whole crypto thing, is this there's potential there for like a reset, like no longer. I mean, that's bad for us because we're in the United States.
Yeah.
But maybe it's probably better for humanity if there is a reset button.
Well, let's clarify because like you're saying, it is bad for us because the United States is sort of leading, the world, right next to China. Yeah. But it's also good for the United States because most of the people in the United States aren't benefiting from this good economy.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
It's probably just a net gain. The only people who maybe even the top 1%, they don't even really get affected because they're the ones who cause it to tumble. Mm-hmm. So it's a tough situation. I want to look in here. There was something I wanted to add about the 90s internet. Oh, the fact that I wanted to clarify specifically that, we use this quote about the 90s internet, representing the development of blockchain, right? But there's also a difference in the technologies of the internet versus the technologies and the implications in the results of blockchain, meaning currencies, right? Cryptocurrencies. Mm-hmm. And so with the internet, it was just a new way to communicate across the globe cheaply, effectively. Yeah. But with cryptocurrencies, it's a literal attack on the foundation of the monetary system.
Well, 100%. If you read like Satoshi's white paper, it's a response at least to
the 2008 crisis.
Yeah, so it's maybe not so much an attack, but it's definitely a response. So the creator of this Bitcoin had in mind, like, we need an alternate system in case this happens again. Yeah. Or maybe in his thinking, whoever created Bitcoin, they probably didn't think the banks were going to get bailed out or something like that. Maybe they thought this is over. Yeah. There is no recovering from something like this. And so they felt the need, whoever Satoshi is, to create this alternative system. Yeah. The timing of it is just...
It's so peculiar because... Like
it could just be a coincidence. I don't know.
It has to be a coincidence. It has to be.
Yeah, it probably is, most likely.
It's just a culmination of different technologies being put together at the right time, and it's coincidentally coming out right at the bottom, right? Yeah. 2009 of the economy. But I think when I say attack, I think it's more of it is a response to our current monetary system, but it's I say attack because it competes with the monetary system, the mechanisms that prop up our current monetary system. Yeah. It competes with that very thing. And the reason why we're so kind of adamant about this doomsday kind of situation is because we see the things that are happening to the dollar and all the other currencies in the world cannot sustain any longer, right? There's going to be a point where it's going to collapse. And to us, the only safe haven is going to be a cryptocurrency that has no no way to be manipulated like it's like fiat is being manipulated. Because right now, like quantitative easing is literally printing money to buy assets from I guess markets that can't use or nobody wants to buy those assets.
Yeah.
And so that's injecting money into the economy. And the only problem is if those institutions that you're buying assets from decide not to spend that money and instead hoard it or invest it or not enter that into circulation, that increases the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what Ray Dalio was saying is that they got that quantitative easing money and they've invested instead of spend it.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're at a point where more quantitative easing is not going to do anything. So, but yeah, man, like I thought that was a good conversation. Man, we need like 2 hours with this guy.
We need 2 hours. That is the best way to do things. I feel like, yeah, because when you only have like a set amount of time, we have to do what we just like. You got to come up with some questions.
Yeah, it felt fast.
It was fast.
I don't know if it was rushed, but it felt fast.
No, I think that's just the man. He's
Yeah.
very.
Maybe
he had a schedule to maintain.
Yeah.
So.
Most importantly, that was like what was like on the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like I had to get all these questions in, and I couldn't really reflect on his response too much, even though we kind of did, like in real time. But
yeah, I mean, there's so much more you could go into. We get it. We didn't want to outright come out and be like, "Hey, how does Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies scale? Like this shit's slow, bro. Like how does this shit get faster?" Because he's been asked that,
dude, a million
times. And it's like we're just gonna add on to that pile of like, hey, bro, it's like Bitcoin is cool and all, but it's just like super slow. Like how do you fix that? And so we were kind of more interested in by Will asking the one network multi-chain idea. It's kind of like
we're way ahead of to me, the way that when I hear that question about the scaling, to me is like I remember in the early 2000s it was the early 2000s. We were still using dial-up internet. Yeah. And it took forever for everything to load.
But nobody at the time was like, man, like you couldn't foresee how fast this shit was going to get.
Exactly.
It's just this is what the internet was, and we accepted it. But we still used it.
Yeah.
We dealt with it.
And when it comes to like Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other slow blockchain, like that's the trade-off that you make right now to get the benefits of no censorship, reliability, the security, all the stuff that these blockchain brings us. Like you'll trade the speed for that. Yeah. For now.
True.
And this speed thing will get resolved eventually. And all of a sudden we're making transactions in much faster than Visa.
Yeah, I think the reason why like the scalability thing is such a hot question to ask is because a lot of that speculation is what drove that 2017 cycle.
That's true.
Like a lot of the biggest run-ups and
imagine Bitcoin Core says, "Hey, we got a solution to the scalability issue. We're gonna see 100,000 transactions per second now." Yeah, and that's all of a sudden, from a speculation standpoint, you'd expect the price to go up. Yeah. So it's buy time every time once you see that announcement.
Yeah, that's why I whenever I was investing in 2017 or speculating, whatever you want to call it, like the thing I focused on because I recognized the biggest gripe within the community is like how the scaling issue. Yeah. With Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it was evident because of the cryptocurrency or CryptoKitty congestion event. Yeah. So these events are important, man. You can't,
You know what? If it wasn't for CryptoKitties, there would be no interest in scaling anything.
Well, there was interest, but it was kind of like just vaguely talked about, but it wasn't like proven. Like holy shit, everyone who's like, speculator, like what's a hater, I guess, of the Ethereum network at the time.
Like I told you.
Yeah, they were like, yep, see, it's like Ethereum won't work. It's like vapor. Everyone's claiming it's vaporware now because. How are you going to run a decentralized general-purpose blockchain? It can't even handle one dApp.
Yeah, that's right.
So then all of a sudden these new blockchain 2.0 projects started popping up. Everyone claiming they could scale to 1 million plus. Yeah. And that's where all the market went crazy over that shit.
And ultimately, Andreas is right. Like when it comes to scalability, it's not a destination, it's a journey. So once you have Ethereum and you have one dApp called CryptoKitties like choke the entire network. Yeah. you see all these like second chain and all these like scalability solutions prop up.
Yeah.
And then once Matic and
Raiden
Plasma and Raiden, all these like get launched and people start using it,
yeah,
somebody's going to create a dApp that uses the entire like bandwidth of that network.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be not necessarily a third level, but there's going to be updates and all kinds of stuff. So
well, yeah, there's going to be there's going to be a third level that's going to be like, hey, we make the second level even quicker.
Yeah.
It's just going to keep piling and piling and piling. Why not? Because people will buy into it. You know?
As long as there's proof that more bandwidth is needed, like a second version of CryptoKitties.
Yeah. No, but I love the idea, like, you know, the understanding. We need to understand better how these chains are going to be interoperable. Is what, you know, that's a key term.
You know, I saw one example of like this interoperability happening is when you go to a store and you use your phone to make a cryptocurrency transaction. Between the phone and the POS system or the point of sale system, they do sort of like a cryptocurrency handshake where like the point of sale system is saying like, I accept, you know, these 100 different currencies, but I like these 6 because I have liquidity in them. And then the phone says, hey, I own these 3 different cryptocurrencies. And then the phone and the point of sale system communicate and do a handshake and say, okay, they select the cryptocurrency for the transaction. And in that second that you're tapping your phone for that purchase, that negotiation happens and you don't even know what cryptocurrency you use. Well, I guess you would use, in this case, Bitcoin, but it is settled on a different blockchain. Yeah. Like Nano or, you know, any other blockchain that makes sense for the given transaction.
Yeah, see, that's beautiful. That's genius.
Yeah. Yeah, right. We don't, I mean, if I have Bitcoin, I
you
just
won't
pay and I
you
don't worry
no
about.
idea that shit just went down, you know.
It's exactly like how credit cards transaction happen.
Yeah.
As soon as you swipe or dip your card, it touches so many institutions, like 6 or 7 different institutions that touch that transaction. But you don't really know it. You just dip or swipe your card and you just walk out and that's it.
Yeah. It's incredible, man.
Yeah.
And like I think he recognizes that, he sees all this development, and so he's like, I'm not even worried about it. It's not even an issue for me, the scaling issue.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's like you said, you know, the people who really care about this technology, like at the beginning, like even us in Decentraland, you know.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we care about it because we have a little business.
Yeah.
We have a little business in Decentraland and we depend on like actual mana transactions. And we don't want to make our users like wait for like a little game.
But I anticipate like the initial user base for the whole platform is going to be people who are
tolerant.
They're aware. Yeah,
they're tolerant. Yeah.
For sure. You said, they're going to be like those people who were using the broadband connection.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like we just dealt with it because we understood the value of the ecosystem. Right?
Most importantly, Andreas understands the value of NFTs, and he understands that gaming is going to play a huge role.
Yeah.
So shout out to Decentraland and all the other metaverses out there that are creating on blockchain.
Yeah, and all the you know, Gods Unchained, CryptoKitties, everyone who's creating products, you know, unique NFT, they're issuing unique NFTs out there, you know. We talked to Metalith a couple weeks ago, you know, this is a fucking barely taking off, dude.
Yeah.
Like this thing is still asleep.
Yeah, this is 2011 of Bitcoin.
That's
right
right. Yeah, it's like you're buying Bitcoin at like $5.
Yeah,
I feel because the ecosystem hasn't even been built.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
You know, we're trying to work on that.
That's right.
You know, we're trying to improve things here and there.
Yeah,
and so are other people. You know, but we want to see this thing succeed just because we see the potential, man.
Yeah, and the other thing that I liked a lot about this interview is that there was the tiny reference to what Andrew Yang keeps talking about.
Yeah.
And
which part?
The fact that that the economy could be booming, but the markets are like struggling. The people are struggling.
Yeah, man, that's important to talk about because it's like underlying for sure. Like there's something wrong with our psyche and stuff, you know. Yeah, so I mean, how much worse will it get whenever the economy starts reacting? What are you doing? Trying to get it in frame. Yeah. Dude, we need to make like an Andrew Yang like a campaign video.
Like a
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like a compilation of our math hats at least.
Yeah, yeah.
We're like, yo, yeah, dude, our math hats are out here representing for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, he's the one who kind of brought that to the mainstream attention. Dude, he's bringing so much shit to mainstream attention.
Yeah,
that's the value of him as a candidate.
So let's talk about some questions that we want to ask Andreas in the next interview. Like, I want to ask him about UBI.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big one for me because, in my opinion, I think UBI is absolutely necessary, not because I want free money or I believe in free money or I believe the government in giving free money away. It's not that. It's that I don't see a solution to automation. I don't see a solution to AI taking over a bunch of jobs. I just don't see it. Now, this is not a religion, okay? So I can be convinced out of this if I see some evidence, some data that represents something else other than what I'm seeing. But if it's not a UBI, I mean, there's a reason why Elon is for it, Zuck is for it, obviously Andrew Yang, and there's so many other people that are for UBI. And these guys they got sufficient amount of money. They don't care about an extra $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
So that's at least one question that I want to talk to Andreas about.
UBI.
Yeah, you got any?
Dude, I just want him to go deeper into the fucking doom and gloom hole, man. That's all I want for some reason. And not just him.
I also want to talk about Libra and fiat currency.
Maybe, like stable coins, I guess.
Oh, yeah, DeFi.
Yeah, DeFi for sure. Yeah, man. When we originally booked him, we're like, man, we need to go deep into DeFi with Andreas. I'm sure he's got a lot to say about it.
Well, I'm sure he loves it. If he loves NFTs, he's going to love DeFi. DeFi is built on Ethereum.
Yeah. That's another thing that could help, bring in some. But again, see, that DeFi addresses like a market that doesn't have that banking infrastructure. So it's kind of like in correlation with cryptocurrencies.
You know what? It affects the first world market too, because in a savings account, I guess if you're in the top 1%, you don't have a savings account. You have your money already invested in like other stuff. Mm-hmm. But typically, a savings account nets you like 0.1% or less.
Yeah.
And so DeFi gives you at least 2 to 3% now.
Yeah.
I remember the days it was 15%.
But I'm just wondering if that difference in percentage is enough to sell to the general population to like trust this, this the ecosystem that they had known nothing about, and it's like it's not even regulated yet, stuff like that. This is all good stuff for crypto people.
Yeah.
For us, like for traders especially, this is good.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
That's why I say I think Andreas nailed it. Like, yeah, video gaming and blockchain game, all that stuff has like a huge role to play.
Yeah.
What's more attractive than games? I guess porn, but I don't see too much blockchain porn going on.
Yeah, I don't see the application there.
I mean, there's got to be an application.
Well, just the currency aspect. I mean, you don't have to really depend on like a service provider to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They might go bankrupt and take all your money, right? So you may not necessarily want to depend on that.
Mm-hmm. What are you looking up?
I'm looking up his book. I want to make sure that I get the name of this book right. Mastering Ethereum. That's what he was talking about.
Yeah. So he's got a chapter in there on NFTs.
Yeah.
Which is good. Yeah, we didn't have enough time to read all the books, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You read The Internet of Money, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. So, but Mastering Ethereum, I thought it was a little bit more technical, and I think it actually is. I just didn't know that he really went deep into NFTs there.
Yeah. That's our bad.
Yeah.
We can leave them, well, that's good. If you're into NFTs, then yeah, this is a good book to check out. There's got to be like, there's limited material on this, this NFT space.
Yeah, I mean, we looked up Andreas Antonopoulos NFT on YouTube. We found nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Not a single mention. But yeah, again, that's our bad for not reading that book.
Yeah.
Should have done our due diligence, Willis. You were terrible.
Well, I mean, 30 minutes, man. We optimized the what we had, I guess.
Yeah. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, no, this was good. Hopefully he wants to come back on. We want to do a deep dive on like Doomsday And like, be frank about it. Like, yeah, I understand. Like, he doesn't want to cause like fear mongering, but let's be real. Shit doesn't look good.
Yeah, maybe we need to bring someone else on to like really like spill out the fear. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like an actual. Well, he studied economy, right? And economics, didn't he? Like
Yeah, I think
early
so.
in his career.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying he's not an actual economist. Maybe we should bring on somebody who like that's their main focus. You know?
Yeah, and yeah.
Maybe somebody who's more like involved in like I got someone just in mind. Maybe I'll try and reach out to him.
Ray Dalio?
Hey, well, yeah. Someone else, but yeah, he produces also like YouTube content. I think he might have a podcast himself, but he puts out like newsletters all the time. He's a big gold guy, but he's also a big crypto guy.
Okay.
Because yeah, he sees that you got to hedge the market. You know?
Yeah.
And he's always talking about this kind of stuff that we're interested in. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I guess like next year we can book some more things. But we also got some interest in some of our Discord members want to start like a Decentraland focused, kind of like a community podcast in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can start with like sort of like a roundtable of contributors in Decentraland, because we have some, I would say like gripes, but also concerns, and we have some hopes for Decentraland to like, you know,
I just think it's good to get everyone together and just like
hash it out.
To kind of get like everyone's like vision aligned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean, there's been groups who have like who've what's the word I'm looking for? Who've collected, who've assembled, that didn't really amount to anything, just because we have different ideologies, different views on like what we would want to build with a given piece of land.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
and like the governance issues, like it's hard. Like I think ultimately Decentraland is like, if you own land, you got to figure out what to deploy on that land to increase the value, make money from the land, whatever you can think of, maybe showcase some art, whatever it is that you want to do with the land. Like, you can't really depend on anybody around that land.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just not, it's too difficult. Everybody has like other concerns.
You can't right now because everything feels like isolated in a way. And it truly is, you know.
Yeah.
Currently. You know, that's what we're going to attempt to. We got a couple people who confirmed they want to come on. So
yeah,
if they do come on, we can have you, me, and Oscar on. That's 5 people right there.
Yeah.
And we'll just like discuss like, you know, we're relatively new to the project. What, like 6-7 months or something in?
Yeah, it feels like we've been in it for like 10 years, dude.
Yeah, most of these people
so weird.
They've been in it since like 2017.
That's true.
You know, a lot of them. That's why a lot of them. We're not as dejected, I guess.
Yeah,
because we weren't sold on their grand vision from the beginning. Like the beginning, their
I would
have,
if I had seen this. I mean, I did see it in 2017. I didn't know that in 2017 they were focused on VR. But had I seen it and like paid attention to it, I would have automatically known that VR is a non-starter. Like, there's not enough hardware out there. There's not enough users to depend on an entire project on VR.
Yeah.
And there are some people who are betting on VR, like Somnium Space and
yeah, for sure.
Maybe Facebook. Well, I mean, Facebook owns Oculus, so I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but you still think like for sure VR shouldn't even be like a.
I don't think it's a concern right now, in my opinion. Yeah. I know others disagree.
Like, what's that transition like to get to that point? Do you like?
I think it's like, hey, we got Decentraland. It runs on your phone, your browser, whatever it is. It runs on there. You can play it anytime on your phone, whatever.
Yeah, you have a character, an account, whatever. You're still experiencing the content.
Yeah.
You're accruing NFTs.
And if you have a
building
VR
reputation,
headset,
all that.
Put it on, enjoy the exact same gameplay, but in VR. Like, that's not like critical in my eyes. Now, of course, there's going to be experiences dedicated for VR, like in Decentraland, but there's going to be experiences not dedicated to VR.
So what would that look like? Like, you're just walking down the street in your VR headset, but
yeah, and then there's some games that you could play, or some things that you can interact with that require like 3D motion space, and interactability.
Yeah.
But then there are games that don't require all that.
Yeah.
So I mean,
so like when you're walking in between metas, like you're not necessarily interacting with anything. You're just kind of like walking by, and everything's passing you by. Yeah. Like, you're not expected to reach out and like grab an apple off a tree or anything like that. But if you enter a specific meta that's like
Yeah, and think of like a switch, like a switch that you literally grab and you pull, right? So maybe the interaction of grabbing and pulling with a VR headset is just a simple click or tap on your phone, and then it does the same interactivity.
Oh yeah, that's like how things work now.
Yeah,
like a little hitbox or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
so I just don't see VR being like such a critical component to Decentraland like most people have. Now I understand it was sold to people as a VR platform.
Yeah.
And that's what they paid for. I get that. It's just when you hit the tire meets the road, like it makes no sense to spend resources on that from a business standpoint. But man, I don't know how we got into that.
Well, because most likely, like, we're gonna have to set that up pretty soon. So
yeah.
It's good to start thinking about it now.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I mean, like, that's our I don't know, that's our passion project, man. So we really got. I'm always constantly thinking about that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll see. That's just one topic we can potentially address. You know.
So I thought of some other predictions that I didn't like bring up in the last podcast. So we made some predictions for 2020. I think one of them is, I mean, this is pretty safe prediction, but if it's not Andrew Yang as the Democratic candidate, we're going to see Trump for another 4 years.
Okay, yeah.
And if for example, let's say in this scenario, Andrew Yang ends up winning, I think we're going to see some sort of a recession at minimum the following 4 years. If not worse than a recession.
Yeah.
Only because I think Trump is really propping up the economy right now. From like a graphical standpoint, right? There's still a lot of people suffering, so I want to be clear.
I think the only role he could potentially have in propping up the economy is just taming any kind of like trade conflict with China, because he's been pushing that button all year long, on and off, and we've seen the volatility that causes. So I think, I don't know, one of his advisors probably be like, hey, put the brakes on this whole trade tariff battle until you get your re-election. Then I think he's going to really ramp it up. There's going to be tons of tension between the China and the United States. It's inevitable, man. Like,
but don't you think that's sort of tipping the breaking point for currencies and all that?
I have no idea.
Like I feel like
I think for sure
he's got an interest, like a major interest. He's like top, let's say 2%, right? Rich people.
Who? Trump? Yeah.
So he's got an interest to like maintain that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking he's not going to be pushing the buttons so much. That's my opinion, right? That's Trump trying to maintain his wealth.
Yeah, but I think he's made his legacy, like he wants to, kind of like how Herbert Hoover did. Like I said, like they said pre Great Depression, he put a lot of tariff pressure on Europe.
Yeah.
To try and like bring manufacturing and industry back, solidify like the United States is the industry mecca of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's Trump's legacy, his mission. He wants to take that power away from China and put it back into the United States. So he says, and that obviously it might not be good timing, just like it was back then.
Yeah,
it's not good timing now because there's so much like sensitivity in the markets right now.
The way to gain that power is to invest in artificial intelligence and automation, because what's cheaper than child labor?
Mm-hmm.
What's cheaper than child labor? That's a question.
What's cheaper than child labor?
Yeah,
I guess automation.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I just threw that out there because I knew that's where you're going.
Yeah.
But I don't have no data to back that up. But I assume it's true, or else they wouldn't be working on it.
If you scale it out, it's true, because robots work for 24/7.
Exactly.
Right.
They don't require like any food
nurturing,
or
like mental stability, like none of that stuff.
Yeah. No, I get it. But see, that's another thing. I'm pretty sure China's way ahead of us in that realm.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like if we invest in that technology now,
then
that's
another thing Andrew Yang says. I remember he got asked that question on the debate stage. He's like, how do you deal with China? And like they're, I think the question was that simple. How do you deal with China? Most of the other candidates were like some usual bullshit, like
like tariffs and pressure and
just diplomacy. But he actually addressed like the technology issue. He's always thinking about that. That's
because that's it. I agree with him. That is the cause of everything that's happening.
Yeah,
it's not like it is. his greatest like quote is when you walk into a manufacturing facility, you don't see like rows and rows of human beings like or immigrants slaving away. What you see is a bunch of robots doing the work.
Funny. Yeah, it's true. I mean, it used to be that way, but yeah, and it's only going to progressively get more and more that direction.
Dude, not only that, it's like, I mean, we see it. Like, there's vehicles in Houston that drive by themselves to deliver food to your house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've seen it already.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just extrapolate that. That's somebody's job that used to, drive and deliver food. So, like, prove me wrong, I guess.
Yeah. Well, my bad for spooking you, dude.
Shit.
Showing you all those, I don't even remember how we got to that point.
Well,
dude, that's just, I don't know, man.
It's the truth. Like,
think so? You think I'm on?
It's like, I'd rather know the truth than
be naive.
Yeah.
Yeah, just naively think like everything. That's what I said. Like, like
At
our
least
generation hasn't had like any real existential threat to it other than maybe 9/11. That's the only thing I can really concoct. And Andreas even talked about it. He said he's old enough to existed during the Soviet Union and the Cold War.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this yesterday. We're like, dude, it's like we never had something like that where every day we wake up at the possibility we're going to get fucking nuked or that's an existential reality that you live in. Like no longer, you're always aware of like your own mortality basically.
Yeah.
In our lives, our generation, we have barely been confronted with that.
True.
In our geographical location. Obviously, there's crazy shit going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Around the world.
For sure.
But what I'm saying is I'm not naive enough to think that I'm going to live out my entire life and not go through one of these.
Yeah.
So that's why I
totally agree.
You agree, right?
Yeah.
So I start to piece things together. And I agree with Andreas that like, we don't want to think like that. Like nobody's hoping for this. I would hope not.
Yeah.
I recognize, if you're holding cryptocurrencies or gold and then all this doomsday shit goes down, these things are going to appreciate in value.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why I'm buying them.
Yeah.
But I'm not,
so this is what like is going through my mind is I have a lot of family who 401ks, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I have to figure out some kind of way to at least warn them so they can at least hedge against like the stock market.
Yeah.
In some provable way, right? Because it sounds like it's
you just can't dump your whole life. Like a lot of our parents' generation, they literally existed almost like they worked their whole lives with that carrot ahead of them.
It's
just had 401k written on it. Retirement, golden years.
Yeah.
They used all these like the marketing for all these these retirement funds. They did it very well.
Yeah.
They put it in their brains at a young age. Like if you don't contribute to this by the time you retire and you can't work anymore, your life's going to be miserable.
Yeah.
And they've profited greatly off of that.
And all signs are pointing to that falling apart at the buzzard.
Yeah, whenever they need it, right?
When they're about to like check out, that's when it falls apart.
Yeah. So that's a real problem to talk about and address. We're like a little crypto channel here.
We're like talking about existential threats.
Yeah, just because I'm waiting for it, man. And that's just my personality,
Yeah.
I don't know. You can call me whatever the fuck you want, but that's just me.
Yeah. And then final thoughts. We saw a couple of violent events occur. And that's also got me a little bit more. I don't know. It's hit me a little bit different than the ones in the past. Even though ones in the past are like much like bigger,
worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
man, we saw one in Brazil. Like, dude, I don't even want to.
Yeah, let's not even talk about that one.
That one's like one of the worst that I've ever seen.
So why did this one hit you different? Because it was you saw the whole event, like
in 3 seconds, in 3 seconds, 2 dudes were shot, and then
in a church, and then what's it called?
White Settlement,
Texas. Yeah,
and then one of the officers there who were there to protect everybody there, in one shot killed the shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it's giving me like a weird feeling. Like it's illustrating to me that the gun debate is spilt milk.
Yeah,
and there's literally no solution besides arming yourself. Like,
well, that's the thing. It's crazy because 2 events happened on this day. There was that event, and there was also a stabbing
in New York,
of like a Hanukkah celebration or something.
the
5
exact
people got
opposite, right?
Yeah, so this. It's kind of crazy that these 2 events happened like on the exact same day, because that's why it's like so political.
Yeah,
because both events like support the opposing arguments.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
The dichotomy is you have
Yeah.
one guy using a
machete?
a machete,
Yeah.
and then you have another guy. You have a good guy with a gun killing the shooter.
Yeah, so both like mentally disturbed people with the purpose, the intent to just kill or attack as many people as possible.
Yeah,
Well, I'm assuming obviously to kill. Yeah. Even with the machete, he's trying to kill people.
yeah.
But what happened? I think 5 people got stabbed, but nobody actually died in New York. I think. I'm not 100% up to date on that, but we saw what happened in that church. He had a shotgun. He killed 2 people within like a couple seconds.
Yeah.
And if there wasn't a man there, an armed civilian,
He could have killed like 6 more or so. Whatever's in the chamber.
yeah, I mean, who knows if he had more guns? But the point is, yeah, that's the support of like, you can't make carrying weapons illegal because
It's already out there.
yeah, like these people who are deranged, the most likely they're gonna find access to a weapon
for
like
sure.
that. If that's their goal, like they know this is their last act on this earth.
Yeah.
Why not go through the effort to at least find a black market weapon?
I was telling you once we got together, the first thing we were talking about is the shooting.
Yeah.
And I forget there was something that you said about it that I can't remember right now. Something about like, I don't remember. It was something about maybe purchasing a gun or something. I forget what it was now.
What, get a Glock?
No, it was something else.
But
But yeah, anyway.
yeah, the point is, yeah, it's an ugly topic because nobody wins at the end of the day, and it's
Yeah, that's exactly right. Nobody
yeah.
wins.
Yeah, and it's part of our culture, unfortunately. And yeah, obviously this mental health shit is like out of control. It's like rampant. Like who the fuck thinks about that? Like they want to go to a church and just kill people.
I remember what it was. That I was interested in, like this guy's economics, right?
Oh, that's
Is
true.
he,
Yeah, you're more concerned about the incentive.
Yeah, the incentive,
Obviously.
like the motivation.
Motivation, yeah.
Was he down on his luck? What was it that like set him off? Was he just like a religious fanatic or anti-religious fanatic? I don't know. Well, that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they don't want that information to be released because that's kind of like it brings glory and fame to their.
But I think in a healthy, mentally stable society, those situations tend to not happen as often. And so what do we need to do from a societal standpoint to improve mental health, financial health, all these things that could lead to less mass killings?
Yeah, this is another like spilled milk debate, dude. It's hard to pinpoint any one thing. It's just like a conglomeration of.
I feel like in a healthy society, like where people are not like in a scarcity mode, they're a lot less prone to committing these acts.
But I mean, there's tons of countries out there that.
Oh,
like Brazil's a perfect example. There's tons of gun violence, but there's like rarely mass shootings.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that's this
that's true.
It almost never happens.
Yeah.
But here, I mean, there's but their violence is still rampant. Like robberies and stuff like that. People get killed all the time in Brazil because of that
financial.
element. Yeah. They're stressed. They're dying over there.
See,
I'm hungry.
So I'm a big science guy, right? So I want, from a scientific standpoint, I want a control group, which we have already, a control group where there's scarcity, meaning you start with $0 in this economy and you work your way up, and let's see where things lead.
Mm-hmm.
So we have plenty of examples of that. What I want is another test of people who have an abundance, right? They have money, at least to pay for the bare necessities. And what effect does that society have compared to the society where you start with $0? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, like Andrew Yang's kind of doing that. He's funding like a few families from his own money or something.
See, but that's not enough. That's not enough.
Yeah, and then you need a bigger sample pool.
Yeah, you need an entire country to not be in scarcity mode.
But to what extent? Like,
Well, just a country.
not like complete, lack of.
Well, I mean, dude, just down the street here, there is literally, hundreds and hundreds of homeless people in tents.
Yeah.
It's tent city.
Yeah.
Down the street from here.
Mm-hmm.
And all those guys with Andrew Yang would get $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And if you put 3 of those guys together into like an apartment, that's more than enough money to like live without so much worry.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious as to what effect, something like this has on society.
Yeah. I honestly don't think it'll have much effect on these mass shooting issues, but
Really?
I think that's a different issue.
I don't know, dude.
It'll have a huge effect on impact.
I would bet against what you're saying. That would be my bet. That's just my guess.
Yeah, who knows?
I would bet against
it
that.
It could have like a trickle, I think like $1,000 a month would have like implications we can't even think of, like
that's less incentive to go to jail, right?
Or like a couple with like young children who are so financially stressed that it damages their relationship to the point where the parents separate.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you've got children raised in single parent households, which statistically is it leads to frivolous life choices. You know what I mean?
Lower quality of life.
Yeah. So, and a lot of these school shooters, they have like hectic household environments. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would think
potentially
$1,000. Yeah, I think $1,000 a month would help in those situations.
Yeah, like no longer is that couple like so financially burdened to like they start hating each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every day is like an argument. Like, you don't make enough fucking money, you dumb fuck. Like shit like that. Like it won't happen because they got $2,000 coming in a month because they're both adults. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they still love each other. They stay together and they raise the family together. And
that's also with the presumption that people can handle extra money, which some people cannot, right? So there's still going to be pockets and elements of like no success with an extra $1,000 a month.
True.
But I think what's the alternative? That's my response.
Yeah.
Like if you don't do this now, when people kind of have jobs now and AI, automation, all that stuff, all technology take over a lot of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
What's the alternative? Like there is no. I haven't heard any other alternative solution than UBI.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, that was one of the more interesting conversations we've had this year.
Yeah, for sure. Like that was rocket speed.
Yeah, it was. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at The Block Runner. We'll put all the links in the description. That way you can buy Andreas's books. Make sure you watch all his YouTube videos as well.
Yeah, definitely read the books because it's definitely everything is not on YouTube for sure.
Yeah, everything's not on YouTube. Yeah,
we just proved that.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're about to add on some new NFT knowledge.
Yeah, for sure.
Some new NFT wisdom. I don't know if we should just title it.
Yeah, for sure.
Just put it in the title somewhere.
Yeah.
If someone's looking to find out more of the NFT, and we should timestamp that.
Yeah.
Do that. Okay.
All right, guys.
Yeah, 2019's a wrap.
Yeah.
2020's coming.
Also follow or join our Discord. There's a lot of stuff going on there too. So
definitely. And especially if you're into finding out more about Decentraland and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We just need more DCL passionate people around us, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Never hurts.
Yeah, it's always cool.
All right, guys, appreciate it, and we'll see you in 2020.
All right, we're out. Peace.